Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another exciting Game Thrifter video. Today I'm going to be breaking down PlayStation 3 and sort of a buying guide for the PlayStation 3. I like to do these every year, especially when it gets closer to the holidays, because I know people are looking for certain things. Maybe you have someone in your life that collects retro video games that maybe is a PlayStation fan. Well, hopefully this video can help out. The PlayStation 3 is highly collectible and the majority of the games are fairly cheap to pick up. I would say 97% of the games are fairly cheap. When you look at the PlayStation 3, I mean, everything kind of changed back when this thing released in 2006, and I think, the world was never the same. Yeah, a lot of people jumped on the hate bandwagon because it was an expensive item, but think about everything that it introduced, including Blu-ray discs as the media, which become the de facto physical media. The original ones, especially the 80 gig, had full backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. I believe even all the models have PlayStation 1 backwards compatibility, but it's still nice to see regardless, right? And that's always a big thing. They had built-in Wi-Fi, which was something that the Xbox 360 didn't have at launch. Remember, you had to buy like a Wi-Fi adapter on that. You had free online with PSN multiplayer, which was really awesome for the time. The controller maybe wasn't the best, but there was different ones that you could get, and later on they came out with the DualShock 3. I think those are the more superior ones. They had a couple different models, the 60 gig models with the 4 USB ports and 80 gig ones as well. They had a 20 gig model that wasn't backwards compatible, that had partial emulation. They had, a lot of different things. They came out with the slim redesign. That's my favorite one because it's the more reliable one in my opinion, and it's not backwards compatible only with, I think, the PS1 maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's really sleek, it's small, it's quiet. And then they came out with the Super Slim, which has a top-loading disc tray. Not exactly, I don't know, I've had a couple of these and the tray always breaks on them because they're not mechanical. So, I don't know, it really kind of depends on what you're looking for. There's also various limited editions and bundles that you can get, including red, white, blue, various colors. There's a lot of different things, like there's a Metal Gear Solid Guns of the Patriots one, a Final Fantasy one, Yakuza. It used to support other OS, but the thing is they were so far ahead of their time because a lot of these features are things that are supported today, right? Like remote play. You could remote play on the PSP and the Vita or Sony smartphones and tablets. It had 3D support. It had the PlayStation Move support, so they were able to have some awesome games with the Move. It had Blu-ray 3D support and Netflix and Hulu streaming, all kinds of stuff. They introduced trophies. It's an awesome console, and I can't wait to get into some of the games. If you can find one, man, pick up a PS3. The Slim is the most reliable in my opinion, but let's get into some games. So first up is a must-have game, The Last of Us. Now, yes, this game is available on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. It's been maybe milked a little bit, but if you're collecting on the PlayStation 3, you're gonna want to throw down with The Last of Us. I mean, this game was absolutely a phenomenon when it came out, and it's still a great game. It looks great on the PlayStation 3, and if you're collecting or just getting into the PlayStation 3, you're gonna want the best games. So I know I usually do lists with some hidden gems, and this list will have some games that I consider to be, underappreciated games, but you can't go wrong with The Last of Us. I mean, it's a classic tale. It's got, a great story. It's got some of the best voice acting in any video game. It's got some heart-wrenching parts, gut-wrenching parts. The gameplay is pretty good, and just overall, it's an experience to be had on the PlayStation 3 that's kind of unmatched if you think about it. And they did such a good job with it, even like the music, pretty much everything that The Last of Us has going for it is something good. It was one of the most decorated games in the history of gaming. So if you're unfamiliar with it, or maybe you've never experienced it on its native console, the PS3, give it a try. Yeah, it's well worth it. It's well worth your time. It's one of the greatest games of all time for a reason. And just sit down, play it, and just soak it in because it's such a masterpiece of a game. And the PlayStation 3 really had a lot of these types of games that were just amazing. Next up is kind of a you pick 'em, Infamous and Infamous 2. These were amazing games. It's rare to get like new IP, and I think it's even rarer nowadays, but back on the PS3 you had a team that went from making a known IP with Sly Cooper to jumping into this franchise. And it's like they built their own superhero with amazing superhero powers and, you know, a great story, open world, like all kinds of powers, morality, right? Can you imagine that, like making that from scratch? Like you have the moral choices to be good or bad in this game, and depending on your choices has a lot to do with kind of the outcome and how your character goes and how people react to your character in a game on the PS3, mind you. This isn't like a new thing, right? This is like a decade ago plus, you know, over a decade ago. This was incredible, and both of these games are absolutely fantastic. I can't say enough good things about them. They're not very expensive to get. They are just super fun games to kind of get into and play, and you know, overall you can see they look great, they play great, and usually, like, the great thing about Sony exclusives, which these were console exclusive at the time, these games have such an epic story, and so many people have come to kind of, you know, associate Sony with like exclusive single player games, and I think that started to kind of start with the PlayStation 3 and games like Infamous and Infamous 2. So yeah, absolutely highly recommend. Marvelous games, great fun, they handle well, they're easy to pick up and play, but have a fantastic story that's really kind of gripping and drags you in and doesn't let go. You'll want to finish them once you start. Next up, we have a game that's still tied to the PlayStation 3 officially, which is Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. It depends on how you look at this series. I love this series. This game coming exclusively to the PlayStation 3 is the reason why I bought a PlayStation 3. I wanted to experience this game, and the fact that it's such an epic game. They added trophies to it later, so if you get it now, you can still like import the trophies, and you know, it updates it and allows you to kind of earn those as well. A great story, you know, like listen, if you're a fan of like the original Metal Gear games, like Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, you're gonna like this game. Like the newer one, I wasn't as big a fan of, but this is just an absolutely fantastic game, and a reason to own the PlayStation 3 in the first place, because at that time, you know, exclusive games were really selling consoles hot. It was like, you know, Xbox was getting, you know, Halo 3 and Gears of War, and PlayStation was kind of slacking on the exclusives at first, but this game was like, okay, I have to get me a PlayStation 3 now. So yeah, it's still an epic playthrough. I play through it at least once a year, so you know, I always recommend it to people. It's a game that you can just absolutely lose yourself in, and it's such a fun experience, and the way that Kojima has kind of handled you know, the storytelling aspect of the game. So yeah, there's a lot of cutscenes in it and stuff, but it's not short on action or fun, so highly recommend Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. Next up, another game that's really high on the tail of kind of getting people to reinvest in PlayStation 3. At the time, a lot of people were kind of not so keen to maybe buy a PlayStation 3, but God of War 3 changed that for so many people, and it was just such an amazing game and an amazing experience. And there's also God of War Ascension that I love a lot on the platform, but I think when you look at God of War 3 as what it was such a jump from Part 2, which was on the PlayStation 2 a few years earlier. And it was just such an amazing thing. They were able to take such good advantage of the PlayStation 3 hardware. You know, the typical combos, the gore, the brutality of it all. It's all here. God of War 3 is absolutely just that game still. It holds up tremendously well. And I think people have kind of really come to respect that. I wish they would have done more for like the 20th anniversary of God of War or whatever. But yeah, this game still holds up incredibly well. Kratos and all his gory badassery is just back for more. There's a lot of you know, boss fights. There's the QTEs. There's the amazing like upgrades and things like that. So absolutely a must-play game. And you know, everybody that owns a PS3 should own the God of War games. And listen, there's an entire collection that actually has the PSP games as well that I highly recommend on the platform. If you're watching and enjoying this video and any of the content on my channel, please do me a favor, like, share, comment, and consider subscribing, as it helps the channel out tremendously as I'm going for 10,000 subscribers. Every little bit helps. I love doing these retro game videos for everybody, so if you enjoy the content, then help me out. After all, I'm at least a bigger draw than Donkey Kong these days, right?
Sorry, Donkey Kong. You're just not a draw anymore. Hey, he still got it.
Next up, you might as well go with a racing game, and if you're going to go with a racing game, you might as well go with Gran Turismo 5, which is a fantastic racing game, and not only is it fantastic, but the game still holds up incredibly well today. I know a lot of people don't realize how these games kind of work, or if it's something that, you know, only newer games can look a certain way. But for me, I think Gran Turismo 5 looks absolutely stunning, and not only does it look stunning, but you know, it still is relevant, and you know, it's just one of the fun games to kind of play. Like, it's synonymous with PlayStation. If you get a PlayStation, no matter what PlayStation it is, you're going to want to get a Gran Turismo title for that PlayStation, and Gran Turismo 5 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot to do in it. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of different cars. The racing itself is just as fun as ever. It's more of a simulator, like an actual, like, realistic simulating game. So if you're looking for something of a racing game that maybe is different than that, or that's arcadey, they have them on PlayStation 3, but I would suggest this one for the purist, the type of person that's looking for something that is more realistic and kind of in the vein of that. So yeah, like, after all, you can see what it is. I mean, sometimes it can take a little bit to get used to if you're used to more of the other types of racing games, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple and a lot of fun to kind of just waste some time in this game. So yeah, Gran Turismo 5, absolutely phenomenal game even today. Next up is another You Pick 'em. This is a trilogy. I mean, this was so cool to see released on one platform, the PlayStation 3. They had Resistance, Fall of Man, Resistance 2, and Resistance 3, and you know, all three of these games are amazing in their own way. You know, that's something that I think, obviously, you know, gamers are going to have to kind of understand that it was a different era, it was a different time. I think, like, developers really got sort of an idea of what the hardware could do and worked the best from that. You know, they did a really good job with it. All three of these games are phenomenal. I think the one downfall of the first game is there's no trophy support, but you know, there's trophy support on 2 and 3, and they've got really fantastic stories. So it's not the longest story, so it's not the worst thing in the world to kind of go through that game and, you know, not get trophies for it or something. You know, I think that's one of the things that kind of does bug me, but overall it's not so bad. And also, the interesting thing about Resistance 3 is that, you know, it's one of those games where you can use a PlayStation Move. I don't know if there's any Move fans out there, but yeah, it's just one of those things where, you know, everybody can kind of just enjoy it, and it's something like a big budget game that's utilizing the Move. So yeah, all three of these games are great. The other cool thing is, if you're a collector looking to get into the PlayStation 3, you can get all three of these games for probably under $25. So and that's not a piece, that's like combined. Like, they're not very expensive at all, but they're fun games and well worth your time. So the PS3 isn't just all about like these big budget exclusives. I mean, it has that too, but it also has much more than that, including games like this, Puppeteer, which just is still one of my all-time favorite games on the PS3. And, you know, it's such a good game and such a, I think, underrated game. Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about it now, and it's like, you know, it's not exactly as a hidden gem as it used to be, because, you know, back in the day, it used to be one of those things where you know, everybody would talk about it. But yeah, like, this one came out at a late instance in the PS3's life that a lot of people kind of ignored it, and then, you know, by the time they started getting on to that, hey, this is a good game, the physical price really kind of skyrocketed. But overall, yeah, this game is phenomenal. It's a lot of fun. It's charming. It's got a lot of heart to it. It's just a game that I think everybody should play, and that everybody will kind of enjoy as well. Just the whole atmosphere of the game, I think, is really cool. And, you know, graphically, the kind of art and all that stuff that they've managed to do with this really just kind of shows, you know, exactly what they were doing. So, you know, it's a shame that we don't get more games like this, especially since Sony seems a lot focused on the big games only nowadays. But yeah, back on the PS3, it wasn't an issue. We had awesome games like Puppeteer. We also had awesome games like God of War. It was like a mixture of everything, and that's what makes the PS3 still such a great console to collect for. Another smaller game was PlayStation AllStars Battle Royale. Such a fun game to go into. Obviously, this is a game that is kind of riffing a bit on the Smash Brothers formula, but with Sony's own twist, which I think is really, really cool. And if you're like more of a PlayStation gamer, then I think it makes sense to kind of look at this and just be excited about, what the future could have been. Like, yeah, it's missing some of the key players that I think people would have loved to see in it. Like, there's no Crash Bandicoot or like Lara Croft, but overall they do a pretty decent job of covering a lot of PlayStation's history. You have like God of War and Sweet Tooth and Cole from Infamous, and there's just a lot of really good characters in there. And while it might not be the most complete thing, it is still a fun game and something that's different. And again, if you look at where we're at now, and I don't mean to like hate on the PlayStation 5, because I have one and I think it's a solid console, but in terms of the games we get from the Sony exclusives, we used to get more of a variety, and now it's like we don't get as much. But yeah, this is a clear point of like how the variety was back then. You get everything from like the big Uncharted type games to stuff like this, and even smaller stuff with thanks to the arcade. So I always point to this game as one that people should get and give it a try, especially if you like the brawl type games. This one's really, really fun and colorful and still holds up today in my opinion. So yeah, PlayStation AllStars Battle Royale, a lot of fun. Not only just big and small games, but also they have games like Resogun, which is a fantastic indie slash like arcade game. Really a lot of fun. This was a launch title for the platform, which I think is really cool that they were able to get this out, and there was so many different like sprites and things. It was a launch title for the PS4, mind you, but it also had a PS3 version as well as a Vita version, and they did something pretty interesting, which was a cross-buy with this. Man, if you bought one copy on PlayStation 3, you got the PS4 and the Vita version. If you bought it on PS3, you got the PS4 and the Vita version. It was really cool how they did that. We used to get so much bang for the buck back in the day. But yeah, this game is really fun and well put together. Something that you can, play for 15-20 minutes at a time, and that's such an underrated thing because, and I've mentioned this numerous times before in other videos that I've done, it's always fun to be able to kind of kick back and relax and not have to put like full effort and have your Gatorade and sweatband next to you while you're playing a game. Maybe you're getting ready to go somewhere in 20 minutes, and so you just want something to chill with. This is the perfect game for that, and it just shows that they're able to kind of accomplish all types of games, all types of variety, and this was just a fun one to play. So yeah, Resogun, a lot of fun. When I say the PS3 had pretty much every kind of genre in gaming, you bet your booty they did. LittleBigPlanet Karting and ModNation Racers. Now this is really, really funny because these games are kind of similar looking, but they play different as well. Like, I actually kind of really enjoy the ModNation Racers story and things like that a little bit more, but LittleBigPlanet Karting is a lot of fun. It's got a lot of quirkiness to it. It's basically kind of Sackboy doing his thing in a cart. There was a time on PlayStation where Sackboy was like their Mario, right? He's in he's in a kart racing game. He was in multiple platforming games. He was in a fighting game like Smash Brothers. He was in PlayStation Battle AllStars Royale. He was everywhere. And, and for a time, they had some really, really good games with Sackboy. And, these are another instance of something they did different, but that was also phenomenal, right? Like, these games were so much fun. And, you can pick them up and play them. And you can do like the co-op and stuff like that with them, and that's something that's really cool as well. Both exclusive and both still tied to the PlayStation 3. So a good number of the games on this list so far are still officially tied to the PlayStation 3, meaning you can't buy them anywhere else officially and enjoy them. So yeah, I always suggest them. Yeah, like the multiplayer and stuff is no longer there, but these are still great games to kind of just jump into and play and have some fun with. There's also the PlayStation Move, which was a peripheral that was very much in line with copying what the Nintendo Wii was trying to do, but it actually had one-to-one controls, which made it slightly better. Now, of course, it didn't have the Wii IP to follow back on, but they did create some games that were specifically made just for this platform, and I think what we're looking at here, Sorcery, is probably one of the better games. It definitely reminds me of like the Fable games on Xbox. It's sort of in that kind of charming aesthetic, and you kind of use the Move controller and move it a certain way to perform certain spells. It really is fun, and it's very immersive, the way that they've kind of handled this. The other cool thing about Sorcery is it's a game that's going to last you a pretty good amount of time, and even though everybody might not be interested in this, it is sort of a thing that's etched in time with the PlayStation 3. So for me, if you're collecting PS3, PS3 stuff, it makes sense to get the Move. You know, it's not very expensive, and there's a lot of games that actually support it, and there's some big AAA games that support it too that also support regular controls. But I always look at Sorcery as the game that kind of sold most people on a PlayStation Move in the first place, and it's just a lot of fun to kind of go out and explore and just have fun with the game that is, you know, like kind of a fantasy game like this, and you know, you're going around learning different things and upgrading, and there's different paths and things like that that you can pick, and it's just a fun adventure, you know, fantasy story. So, you know, if you are into the Move, I highly recommend picking up Sorcery. Next up is Killzone 3. Yeah, you know, this is a really good game, and this is a Move game as well. Like, that's one of the cool things about some of the games that we see on the PlayStation 3. They're Move compatible, right? Like this one, and there's a bunch of other just main, even Resistance 3, main trilogy games that are just unequivocally well done and well put together. And they also are like these big budget AAAs that will run the actual Move controllers. So, you know, I look at that, and I look at that as something that is really, really cool. You know, and again, Killzone 3 is very well done. I have the collector's edition of it, and it's a fun game. It still has like the weighted controls and things like that. It's even more fun and immersive with the Move. So, you know, a lot of people don't realize that. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of Move games here, but it's just something a little bit extra special and added to it. Graphically, this game looks phenomenal, even today, right? Like, you're looking at this right now. I just recorded this. It's like amazing. And, you know, these games are still pretty much tied to the PlayStation 3 officially. And, you know, I think it's really kind of sad that we won't see a continuation of this franchise. But yeah, this is a fantastic game, and you can play it with the Move. And, you know, I think that not enough people realize how awesome that is just in general. So yeah, Killzone 3, great game. Killzone 2 is also awesome on the PS3, but no Move support. So yeah. And finally, I'm going to end it with my favorite PlayStation 3 game, Uncharted 2. This might be the best game of that entire generation. It's certainly right up there. The entire trilogy is great, 1, 2, and 3. You can get all 3 games on the PlayStation 3, which is really cool. But just something special about Uncharted 2, so I wanted to kind of give it its own kind of spotlight to shine. This is where Nathan Drake really took off, and it was just such a phenomenon to see the improvements over the first game. And I liked the first game, but I always look at Uncharted 1 and 2 sort of like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. Sonic 1 was fun, but man, Sonic 2, when they introduced, you know, Tails and the Spin Dash and all that great stuff, was where Sonic really took off. And just, I love the Uncharted series, but Uncharted 2 is hands down just the most epic adventure, you know, third-person shooter. And I just find it, you know, the whole treasure hunt aspect of it to be amazing, and, you know, just probably one of the more fun games. You literally, when you play this game, I think one of the cool things about it is you just smile like all the way through it, and that's really cool to me. You know, I like games that bring a smile to my face and that are enjoyable. You know, not games that, you know, make me sweat and get me tense and things like that. So yeah, that's why Uncharted 2 is just right up there at the top of the top. And just such a fantastic game. If you've never played it, you know, do yourself a favor, play the first one and then play this one. But still, just this one is just the pinnacle of gaming, man. Naughty Dog was absolutely on fire with this amazing game. Give it a try if you've never tried it. It is fantastic. So there you have it, a pretty comprehensive list, lots of hardware to choose from. I always suggest the first iteration of the Slim. It's really well done, and you know, I gave you a nice list of games. There's tons more games that I could list, and I have some other lists of PlayStation 3 games on my channel if you want to check them out. I try to give my honest perspective on them. I could have went on and on. This video would have lasted hours if I would have went over every game, but hopefully you guys got a good indication of some of the games I like. As I mentioned earlier, the PlayStation 3 is highly collectible. It's a console that you can get games for incredibly cheap now, and it's just so much fun to go in and still play these games. It is. It's just, honestly, that generation was such an amazing generation, and I didn't even touch on the great multi-platform games that were out. I mean, you know, the BioShocks of the world, you know, the Dead Spaces, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, tons of games to choose from, and it's such a great time to collect I highly suggest it. Let me know some of your favorite PlayStation 3 games down below in the comments. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys have a good time. Be nice to each other in the comment section. Just remember, we all have our own opinions, and nobody's wrong. We just all have different opinions. That's fine. I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Game on, my friends. Game on.